What if Goku was in the MCU, Part 1? Planet Vegeta is about to be destroyed, but there was a child who was inside of a Saiyan pod that was able to escape its destruction. It flies throughout space and then lands on a beautiful blue planet called Earth. Black Widow just recently finished one of her missions and is about to head back to S.H.I.E.L.D., but then she gets an announcement that there is some sort of alien spacecraft that's heading in her direction. Thinking it might be a threat, she ends up trying to investigate it herself. As soon as she gets close to the sphere-like spaceship, the door starts to open. Black Widow has her weapons ready to fire, but then what pops out is just a baby. Black Widow still has her guard up. She doesn't know if maybe it's a shapeshifter or maybe it's some sort of radioactive monster. She doesn't necessarily know. So she keeps the child inside of that little pod thing until other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents arrive. But she at least watches it through that little window, and it's just being a baby. Black Widow reports to Nick Fury and tells him that the thing that came out of the spaceship was an infant of some sort. Agent Coulson and the other agents that are around the sphere do some tests to make sure that there is nothing going on with the actual spaceship and that it wasn't radioactive, which luckily it wasn't, and that the child is just a child. So the baby wasn't a shapeshifter of any sort, it's just an alien baby. Now the conversation of what should they do with this alien child, because they don't really know its potential. It could just be like a humanoid alien creature that just so happens to have a tail, or it could have a lot of other potential power. They don't know. Something in Black Widow just seems to want to protect this child. She was the one who found it, and she somehow gains an attachment to it. And she feels if he does have potential, he might end up being used as a weapon. And for some reason, she's just not okay with that. So she volunteers to take care of this alien child. Nick Fury takes a second to think about this, but eventually he says yes. But there's a condition. If the child starts showing potential or like powers and such, that she has to report to him about that. Black Widow reluctantly agrees, and she starts to raise her alien child. As Black Widow took in this child, she noticed that he had quite the tendency to want to destroy things. But she kind of got called in for another mission. She needs to go to a mission, and the only person she can leave Goku with is Agent Coulson. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 2. Agent Coulson has just been given an alien child by Black Widow because she ended up getting a last-minute mission. And it's a flipping nightmare, this kid. He keeps on trashing everything, he keeps on scurrying around. It's like he's not even raising a human being, he's raising a very rambunctious dog. He is trying his best to keep him out of anything dangerous, but that's very difficult. And he also didn't expect this kid to be so athletic as a literal baby. The kid can't even walk yet, and yet it's able to crawl faster than he can walk. Baby Goku is just scurrying, and now Agent Coulson is trying his best to get this child, because now this baby is just running through the helicarrier. Oh, did I forget to mention? He's not in like a house. No, he's in the helicarrier. Now Goku is getting outside of the helicarrier, and it is becoming quite dangerous. Like, everyone that Agent Coulson called to try and catch this baby, he's getting as many agents as possible, but this kid is just like freaking quite the agile master. One of the agents was actually lucky enough to grab onto Goku, but Goku, being the little terror that he is, ended up biting that agent's hand and dropped him. And then he just started freaking running and running until he finally reached the edge of the helicarrier and accidentally fell off. Agent Coulson tries to grab the child, but it's too late. Goku's already fallen, he passed the cloud, and now he can't. Agent Coulson can't even see him anymore. And in his mind, he's thinking, so this is how I die. This was not not going to be a light fall. So Agent Coulson, in the back of his mind, has already accepted that the kid is likely dead. Agent Coulson wouldn't even expect like a full grown-ass man falling from the helicarrier to survive, let alone a baby. Now, Agent Coulson needs to think of a way to let it down really gently that he may have accidentally killed Black Widow's son. And even in his head, it's not going very well. What if Goku was in the MCU, Part 3? Agent Coulson and a few other agents are on the lookout for a baby that fell out of the helicarrier. They at least want to find Goku's body to bury. They don't really expect for him to be alive. Agent Coulson looks at the child in utter amazement. The kid survived. Not only that, he's fully intact. But there is something going on in like the back of his head. It has like a bit of a bump and a bit of bleeding, but other than that, the kid's still breathing. So they take Goku into the medical center in the helicarrier and find that he is not like severely brain damaged and that the majority of his bones are perfectly fine. The medical center kind of looks at Goku's brainwaves from their first examination to now and find that they're slightly different. Not only that, but the child is also acting extremely different too. He isn't fighting anyone, he isn't like throwing a tantrum, he isn't biting people. If anything, the child is acting a lot more well behaved. They give Agent Coulson the go-ahead to take Goku to his original room, but they do tell him to keep them on standby in case the kid has a concussion. Agent Coulson holds on to Goku and he notices the difference right away. The kid's not kicking, screaming, clawing, or anything like that. He's being quite a well-behaved baby. The only thing he's doing is just playing with Agent Coulson's tie. And then he thinks long and hard. Should he tell Black Widow that he may have dropped her child on his head from thousands of feet in the air? And he thinks about it, and he thinks no. The kid's still alive, and he's fine. So he's just gonna keep this to himself. And so for the rest of the night, it just ends up being normal babysitting. The child is just being a child. And then Black Widow comes into the room. At first, Black Widow was fully prepared for her child to basically do like a freaking running maneuver toward her. She was already kind of used to Goku's personality being highly aggressive. But what she wasn't prepared for is just seeing Agent Coulson just putting a sleepy Goku to bed. And she's very curious about this. Like, what did Agent Coulson do that made her child so less aggressive than he normally is? Black Widow goes to Agent Coulson and then asks, point blank, what did he do to make her child a lot more well-behaved? Coulson just looks at Goku and then just pats a little bit on the back of his head and says, it's a secret. What if Goku was in the MCU Part 4? It's been a couple of years and Black Widow has grown quite a strong attachment to Goku. She really feels as this child is her own. One of the things that goes through Black Widow's mind is that her son may be in danger sometimes, or if someone comes after her, then her son might end up being vulnerable. So she really thinks that maybe she should train Goku just to do some basic self-defense just in case. But Goku is like only 3 years old at the moment, so she expects to try to teach him maybe when he's a bit older. Right now, Goku is in his little playpen, but Black Widow wants to get some training done, but she doesn't have anyone to watch him, so she decides to just do her training in the room with him. She does some martial arts maneuvers, like some special punches and kicks, and even a drop kick, and then she just hears a thud behind her. She looks behind her and she sees that Goku is like trying to copy her somehow. She didn't see this directly, but it just makes sense with the way that Goku's body is just like imitating hers. She decides to do some basic maneuvers and then just watches Goku just to see if he's trying to imitate her. And he is. And he's doing it actually quite well, actually. She notices that Goku has basically mastered like her basic maneuvers, and he only needed to do it once or twice. So she decides to maybe put this to the test. She decides to do a drop kick. Out of just curiosity, it doesn't matter if Goku can do it correctly right now. She just wants to know if he would attempt to do so. This one stumped Goku, but only for like a minute or two, and then he starts perfecting it. Now, keep in mind that Goku is only like 3 years old, and he's doing maneuvers that take some adults a long time to learn. Now, Black Widow thinks that maybe this has to do with his race. Maybe they're natural martial artists, and thinks that maybe instead of having Goku's training later, she could actually just move up his training now. It's been a couple more years, and Black Widow is noticing that Goku is now like a 6-year-old martial arts master. Now, anything that wasn't martial arts, Goku kind of struggled with. Things like math, English, learning history, those always seemed to like really stump him. But when it came to martial arts, it was almost like second nature. Goku would pick it up, and Black Widow was always so proud. And as such, she gives this information to Nick Fury. What if Goku was in the MCU, Part 5? Now, while Black Widow has been raising Goku, there have been some hiccups here and there, especially with Goku's appetite. Black Widow is trying her hardest to try to give her son at least some semblance of normalcy. She thinks about sending him to school, but with Goku being a complete uncertainty, she doesn't know if that environment would be helpful or not. The only people that Goku has been able to really talk to are other agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Coulson. But she wants to be able to have people around Goku's age so that he can actually be a child. She thinks for a while, is there anyone that she trusts who happens to have a kid that her kid could play with? Clint. So she thinks about setting it up, basically like a play date. When Hawkeye gets the call from Black Widow to have her child play with his children, he's genuinely like happy for her that she's getting some sense of normalcy. When Hawkeye meets Goku for the first time, it's almost like he has like a new nephew, and it feels kind of heartwarming that he has such a quick attachment to Goku because he's just so sweet and innocent, just like his own kids. But he can also tell that Goku can be quite rambunctious. Like, he's asking questions about anything and everything, and is just scurrying around the house and playing with his kids. But as the kid was running, he just sees this little brown tail, and that just makes him go into question mode. Natasha, is there something that you should probably tell me? Like, the tail is throwing him off. The kid looks mostly human, but something tells me that the kid is of alien origins. Natasha goes into Goku's origin, how he came from some sort of spaceship, and that he may be from alien origins. And the fact that he has really good martial arts ability. Then her and Clint go into a conversation about what Goku's future is going to look like, and more than likely he's going to be involved in S.H.I.E.L.D., and is she okay with that? And Natasha takes a moment to really think about it, but then their conversation gets cut short. Clint's daughter really wants to play with Goku outside, and she really wants to show him to the new barn that her dad's been working on, and she takes Goku with her. Due to the little girl and Goku playing, they accidentally somehow turned the tractor on, and normally this wouldn't be a real big deal, but the little girl ended up getting her leg caught, and the tractor is just moving forward towards her, and she can't escape. And Goku, not wanting to see his new friend get crushed, goes in front of the tractor, grabs it, and stops it from moving. What if Goku was in the MCU, Part 6? Now let's go into more of an explanation to what happened to Planet Vegeta, because it wasn't destroyed by Frieza. Instead, it was freaking destroyed by Thanos. Thanos saw that the Saiyan race in and of itself could be a potential threat, decided to nip it in the bud before it becomes a real problem. he ends up using a lot of like Saiyan-specific killing weaponry. Freaking shooting them down with giant laser beams to be able to get as many Saiyans killed as possible. The Saiyans put up quite a bit of a fight, but eventually their numbers were starting to dwindle. Thanos decided that he wanted to make sure and went onto the planet himself to go and see if there was any survivors. And there were, and a few of them ended up vowing loyalty to Thanos. And Thanos accepted this, but with a lot of conditions, such as all of their tails were removed. Most of the Saiyans bowed in fealty, except for one really stubborn child. Vegeta was so pissed. He lost everything. All of it. His throne, his birthright, all of it destroyed by this purple freak. Vegeta figures that he would rather go down fighting, so he tries to take Thanos on. But the thing is, Thanos has a lot more experience, even though Vegeta himself is quite powerful for a kid his age. What Thanos makes up for not having enough power, he makes up for with a lot of experience and specially made gadgets. Thanos is able to get this specially made gauntlet onto Vegeta, causing his ki to be restrained inside of his body. And Vegeta is now on the floor, and he's waiting for his death. Thanos takes a real fascination with Vegeta, this headstrong attitude, and doing whatever it took, even if he knew he was going to fail. Still willing to fight, impressed Thanos so much that he decided to take Vegeta in as one of his children. Thanos gets Vegeta, and he's getting closer and closer to the ship. Vegeta tries to fight with everything he has to get out of this Titan's hand, figuring he would rather die on this planet than live as his slave. As Thanos is dragging Vegeta, he's not being really condescending to Vegeta. Instead, using a much more somber tone with him, as if he were talking to an infant, telling him that he's now gonna go and meet his other siblings. Gamora is just inside, just really depressed, and then she sees her new brother. What if Goku was in the MCU Part 7? The tractor would not stop, and if Goku were to let go, the little girl was going to be crushed by the giant wheels in the back. So Goku held onto the Titan and started to lift it up. This should not be possible for a normal 6-year-old. Both Natasha and Clint were just hearing a whole bunch of racket coming from outside, so they decide to run towards it, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Because they noticed that both of their kids are basically gone, and the noise is coming from inside a barn. As they run towards the barn, they don't expect to see a 6-year-old Goku holding onto a tractor, picking it up full force to protect his new friend. Clint, now realizing that his daughter is in danger, really close to the wheel, gets her leg unstuck and gets her away from that thing. And as soon as his daughter is out of danger, he gets on top of the tractor and shuts it off. Goku, now realizing that his friend is out of danger, freaking lets go of the tractor, and it falls down with a heavy thud. Goku doesn't necessarily realize the severity of the situation, but what he does realize is that he did in fact help a friend out who could have been hurt severely by that tractor. So he goes up towards his mom and says, "Mom, I saved my friend from the big tractor." Natasha just gets down to Goku's level, looks at him and says, "Yeah, you did a really good job, big guy." Internally, she is going through quite the massive struggle, because she knows that sooner or later she's gonna have to give this information to Fury, especially now her son doesn't just have martial arts ability anymore. Now he has super strength. There is no way that Fury is going to leave Goku alone knowing this information. He's too much of a perfect weapon. She knows that it's only a matter of time before Fury gets this information, regardless if she tells him or not. Better to come from her and give her input than to have some random other agent find out, and then there would be a whole lot of other issues. She's still at Goku's level at this moment. She looks at Goku and tells him he should probably go inside and have lunch with his new friend. She's gonna be with his uncle Clint at the moment. Clint looks at her in the eyes, and it's almost like they're having a conversation internally without even saying a single word, but understanding what the other is probably thinking. Nash, I know that I would probably feel different if it were one of my kids, but you just saw what the kid just did. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 8. Black Widow figured that she probably should tell Nick Fury in person, so that way they can have a longer conversation, because she knew that this is probably going to be a vigorous and long one. She requested that she be in a room alone with Nick Fury specifically. She wanted to be able to have his complete attention and to make sure that no one else could hear what she was about to say. Nick Fury gets to the room, stern look on his face, and let's begin with not so much an argument, but a well-needed debate. It takes Fury a moment, but then the conversation gets started. Now, let's get this straight. I would not be asking this of you if I didn't see your son as being a valuable asset to S.H.I.E.L.D. The kid has super strength, speed, and knows every single martial arts you've taught him in a matter that takes some of our agents years to master. He would be a very valuable asset. Black Widow looks directly into Nick Fury's eyes, with the fire and passion of a mother who wants to protect her child. But she also, in the back of her mind, understands Nick Fury's predicament. Her son does seem to have anything and everything that S.H.I.E.L.D. is looking for in a new recruit, and at such a very young age. But she also needs to take her son's feelings into account. And as she stares into Nick Fury's eyes, now it's her turn to give her points across. My son isn't a weapon, but I do understand that you guys see him as a great potential asset. But this is also my son's choice. And the deal I want to make with you is to give my son the choice to be with S.H.I.E.L.D. This isn't either a yes or a no. I will allow my son to train here, but if I feel under any circumstances that he is being forced to work here, I will sever all ties with S.H.I.E.L.D. and take my son with me. There is not a look of any deception whatsoever, so Nick Fury knows she is not lying. Nick Fury also looks directly into Black Widow's fiery eyes, and looks directly at her and says, I'll accept this deal, but I do have some conditions of my own. Let Goku's training begin. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 9. Goku was ecstatic! He gets to train as much as he wants, and against several different opponents, he could not be any more thrilled. And although Goku doesn't know about his Saiyan instincts, he gets this sense that he was missing something in his life. Like, there was a part of him that he kind of had, but didn't get to fully grasp on. Nick Fury put Goku under a lot of vigorous tests. For both speed and strength, they wanted to test his extreme limits. After every single mission that Black Widow did, she went to go and see her son to make sure that he wasn't being overly strained. But she was thoroughly surprised to find that every single time she visited her son, even if he was put under like really stressful freaking training, like picking up extremely heavy weights, going through a lot of freaking agility exercises, he never looked upset or extremely tired. Instead, he looked like he was ready for the next test. And Black Widow really couldn't argue with the results. Her son seemed to be getting a lot more agile, a lot faster, and a lot stronger. Nick Fury just saw that Goku had so much potential, and it seemed like he would be a perfect fit for the Avengers initiative. But that would have to be on hold for now, considering he did make a deal with Black Widow that it had to be up to Goku, and that it should be his decision whether he wants to continue working with S.H.I.E.L.D. It turns out that Goku's proficiency in fighting was getting so well done and masterful that them making his conditions even harder in itself was getting harder. They had to find creative ways to make his training more worthwhile. So one of the ideas that one of the men came up with is, why don't we use rubber bullets to test out Goku's agility? Let's make a room that has random bullets onto the walls and see how fast he's able to dodge. So when Goku went inside and doing his training as normal, he was able to dodge the majority of the bullets that were coming towards him. Until one that was supposed to be a surprise bullet that came from the floor going upwards freaking hit him right at the jaw. When they finally realized that the thing that hit Goku underneath his chin was an actual bullet and not a rubber one, they stopped the training immediately. Goku ended up taking a bit of a tumble onto the floor, and they assumed that they accidentally killed him. All of them are frozen and waiting for the repercussions. What if Goku was in the MCU Part 10? As the months go by from Vegeta's capture, he ends up having, instead of the gauntlets that restrained his ki, he now has to wear this special collar on his neck. Vegeta met the majority of his siblings, and he hates the majority of them, except for maybe 2 exceptions. Vegeta felt like these 2 specific kids had at least a similar feeling to him. Nebula, being one of his sisters, seemed more like she was afraid of Thanos and was more willing to comply, but she could see from the gleam in her eye that she really did not like having to do this. Then there was Gamora. Gamora seemed to be in a more footing with him that seemed to have a fiery, just passionate hate for Thanos. Really wanting to end his existence. When Gamora would look into Vegeta's eyes, she felt like she was looking at a reflection. They both had that same intense hatred for Thanos, and for some reason, that seemed to give her a semblance of comfort. And through the battles that all of the siblings had to fight each other for dominance of sorts, when Vegeta and her would fight, it never felt like it was out of hatred for one another. It felt more like they were both gunning for survival. If Vegeta didn't have to wear this ki-suppressing collar, she knows that she would probably have very little chance of winning against him when they have to fight each other. But when it comes to fighting skill towards one another, they're always equally matched, and every single battle that they've had towards one another always ends in a draw. And even though Vegeta has had more fights with this girl than actual conversations, it's almost as if they have a mutual understanding, as if they were actual siblings. Vegeta fighting Nebula was a completely different story. Even though he can kind of understand her predicament, he never really had that same connection as he did with Gamora, and beating her was just extremely easy to him and outright trivial. And after she'd get beat by Vegeta, she would get her ass handed to her by Gamora. And he could understand why every single time they fight, that look in her eyes just had that sense of hatred just blasting in his direction. As Thanos would sit on his throne and watch as his children battled with one another, vying for dominance, he did find the connection between Gamora and Vegeta to be outright interesting. And it was really heartwarming to know that at least some of his children could find connection with one another. What if Goku was in the MCU, Part 11? For the most part, Goku's life is pretty great. He gets to train as much as he wants. He does have to get an education, but he's mostly homeschooled. And not only that, he also gets to spend a lot of time with his new uncle and aunt, specifically Clint, and his kids. Black Widow was in the middle of going to like some sort of meeting to go over plans, especially with the Avengers initiative taking precedent. She just wanted to go over it, especially about how her son was supposed to fit into that. But also she wanted Goku to not be on the helicarrier. She wanted her son to take a break from training for a bit because, yeah, training is good, but Goku is also still a child. So she ends up having him brought over to Clint's barn to go and play over with his kids. And she's also really upset about what happened to her son being shot in the head, but that's besides the point. Goku, in his childish state, decides to challenge his Uncle Clint to a sparring match of sorts. And when he says yes, the adrenaline in his body just suddenly started pumping. And Clint is going through this battle with this, 7-year-old child, and he's giving him a run for his money, not expecting this kid to be so skilled at such a young age. Especially given the height difference, he thought he would probably have more of an advantage. So Clint and Goku were mostly training in the barn, and without even really noticing that day ended up turning into nighttime and Black Widow still wasn't back, probably the meeting took a lot longer than anyone really thought. Clint didn't really think much of it. Yeah, it's a little bit past the kid's bedtime, but only the moon was just slightly out in the night sky. Clint ends up just looking at the kid, trying to see if he's tired, and then just notices that his eyes almost go into a glazed state, like he's staring at something extremely intensely. The kid's eyes started to turn red, and he was growing hair everywhere, and he was starting to grow. Clint only had to take a moment to just come to the realization that this kid is going to be extremely dangerous in a bit. He gets his arrow ready to fire, but then he just looks at that little kid's face. It's still there. It's starting to grow into a snout, but he also really doesn't want to end up killing this kid. The kid is starting to grow, and it doesn't look like it's gonna stop anytime soon. So Clint is trying to think, what can I do to distract the kid away from the house? So he ends up shooting the freaking tail with a explosive freaking arrow. The tail falls off and he returns to his normal state. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 12. Clint told Natasha everything that happened. About how he turned into this giant monstrous monkey thing. How he had to blow up the kid's tail to turn him back to normal. And with this information that they got, they decided that Goku would always have to go to bed at a certain time so that he would never be able to look at the moon. They didn't want to risk that the transformation had something more to do with just the tail, and they felt like that's probably the safest bet. Now all the pieces are coming into play, and now they're going to try to bring in the Avengers initiative pretty soon. So one of the things that she's trying to do is get all of her stuff ready because she's going to be going undercover. Goku is now past the age of a child. It has been a few years. Goku is now about 12 years old. Natasha is so proud of her son. If he had maybe a little bit more interest in his actual studies and actually was really good at maintaining information, he would probably be an amazing spy. The only type of information that Goku can keep within his skull is if it revolves around training. But Natasha is still proud of her son regardless. He's able to just completely demolish an entire group of freaking fully veteran type agents who are really good at martial arts skills. He's given these special training facilities. He got used to the shooting room and is able to dodge bullets at will now. And although when Goku was a child, she was very hesitant about having Goku become a full-time SHIELD agent or being a part of the Avengers initiative, but as she sees her son improving skill-wise and is just getting better and stronger in martial arts, she's almost finding it impossible to find fault with this plan. But so far, Goku is still a child. He's literally just 12. And she still needs to go and find other members for this initiative that they're supposed to be creating. Nick at first gives her the last bits of information that she needs while she's heading off to Stark Industries. But before she goes, Nick looks at Natasha and says, "We're gonna take really good care of Goku. He's gonna be fine. The kid's one of the most strongest fighters on this ship." Like, come on, Natasha. Kid took a bullet straight to the neck and still is alive. Heck, I hear this kid fell off of this ship and fell right on his head and he still survived that. That was new information to Natasha, and she's wondering who she's going to have to kill next. What if Goku was in the MCU Part 13? Over the last couple of years, Vegeta had to be a lot more hands-on, especially when they had to do purging missions. Because Thanos still didn't feel very comfortable letting Vegeta actually have full range to his powers, Vegeta had to be a lot more creative with more of his actual physical martial art ability. This means that he was very limited about how many times he could actually fly and how many times he could actually shoot ki blasts. He'd always had to get permission from Thanos to even use the fraction of his power. But Vegeta saw this more as like a challenge, something that he needed to face, and something that he just had to get used to in this new reality he lives in. Vegeta is no saint, even before his planet was purged, but it always did bring a really bad, sour taste to his mouth, to basically kill people who weren't capable of protecting themselves. It felt like he was winning a battle that didn't mean anything. Gamora was the only thing to Vegeta that gave him some semblance of comfort, in the fact that they could both relate to one another, considering their circumstances of how they came to be here were basically the same. Thanos calls upon his two favorite children and entrusts in them a special task: to find the Infinity Stones. And he knows that they have the capability and the power to find them. In Thanos' twisted parental love for both Vegeta and Gamora, he sees that what he has done for both of them is basically make them stronger and more independent. And that once he has all the Infinity Stones and makes that huge snap, he knows that they are going to be more than capable of surviving without him. Thanos takes a really hard look at his children. First upon Vegeta, and just sees that he's just emanating strength. Even without the use of his actual powers, he still feels that he gave Vegeta the perfect stepping stone to actually be a stronger and capable fighter. Then he looks upon Gamora, and all he can see is that he has given her all the tools ready to be completely battle-hardened to the atrocities that she's more than likely going to see in her lifetime. Thanos gets that strong sense of pride that he has created two very capable warriors. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 14. Goku's mom has been gone for a little while now, but Goku's not worried. He knows how tough his mom is, and he cannot wait to give her a sparring match when she gets back. Unlike the Goku from canon, Goku is actually extremely interested by things that are shown on the TV, especially action movies. He really loves just watching all the actors doing these awesome martial arts abilities. As Goku was watching a movie that was airing on the TV, suddenly there is a news announcement that people are being attacked by robots at this technology expo thingy. Goku doesn't even think about it for a second. He ends up just taking off and trying to find if there's any kind of way he can get there. His mom ended up having them buy some sort of apartment that was in the city because of her work, and he figures that his mom might actually be in danger. Goku decides to just head towards where most people are screaming. And even though he can't fly, he can still jump pretty high. So he uses that ability to jump as high as he can to get some sort of vantage point and then just looks for the most group of people that are just running away from said direction. And eventually, he finds the place that he was looking for, where there's a whole bunch of robots that are just shooting at things. Goku really doesn't want anyone to get hurt, and so when he sees his first robot, he takes action right away, as if flipping a switch into his head. He ends up going towards the robot at top speed, gets his fist, and then just freaking rams right into the center, and then just rips the thing out. And he does that for a while and repeats the motion. Sometimes he slices a robot in half. Another time he literally punched right through one of the robot's face and then tossed the body to the other robots. He was trying to make sure he could destroy as many robots as possible. Take into account that he doesn't know about his own key energy and that he can actually shoot projectiles. So he's literally doing this with just his bare fists. As Goku is looking for any more robots that he needs to destroy, he sees this kid in an Iron Man mask just using a toy laser thing to shoot one of the robots, and it looks like one of the robots is going to kill him. Goku is about to just sprint over there and save the kid's life, but suddenly the real Iron Man shows up right behind the kid and then shoots the freaking robot to smithereens. Goku was utterly inspired. Just energy that just comes out of your hands. Goku really thought about it and just looked at his hand, and then just started imagining something blue and glowing coming out. And suddenly there was... What if Goku was in the MCU, part 15? Goku was just looking at his hand in amazement. He's able to shoot out laser beams just like Iron Man without the iron suit? This is just groundbreaking. Goku really wants to test this out. He wants to know if this is not a fluke, that he can do this regularly. So he focuses all his energy, pulling something from somewhere. Goku couldn't really describe how he's getting this power to his hand, but he's just imagining that it's like a big ball of energy in his center, and he's just bringing it to his hand. Goku sees that there's a robot just a few feet away. He needs to test this out. He needs to know that this is something he can do consistently. So he takes his hand in the direction of where the robot is and imagines that blue light in his hand again. And as it feels like this little tinkle of warm sensation that just seems to just flow from the top of his arm all the way to his hand, right to the palm. And as soon as he just imagines it, he releases it right at the robot and it explodes. Goku is just left in amazement. This isn't a fluke. This is indeed something that he can in fact do. But even though Goku really wants to experiment more, there seems to be a bit of a situation with all the robots heading into one specific direction, and Tony kind of looks like he needs some help. So Goku decides that he's gonna put this little experiment on hold for now, and tell his mom about it later, because it seems that there are people who need his assistance. It seems Iron Man took care of the majority of the robots issue. A lot of them just look like mangled corpses on the floor. Goku is so excited. This is the first kind of actual battle he's ever seen up close. And it's just thrilling to watch Iron Man use up all of his freaking maneuvers, little missiles, laser things from his hands. He just cannot get enough of that. And when that giant explosion between Iron Man and the Silver Iron Man happens, he's blown away by its power. But the villain just does not seem to want to just surrender peacefully. Iron Man and the Silver Iron Man basically flew away as soon as there was these beeping lights in the robot center. And Goku's no genius, but I think even he can figure out that these things are about to explode. Goku really doesn't want this explosion to hurt anyone that may be close by. So Goku goes into the middle of the room, not really knowing what he's supposed to do. And in his frustration, he ends up releasing all of his energy at once, accidentally setting off an EMP. What if Goku was in the MCU, part 16? As Goku looks around, all of the robot's little beeping lights just seem to just turn off. But then something clicks in the back of Goku's mind. He came to see if his mother was okay. Goku starts to hear a whole bunch of sirens, and he thinks that it's probably a good time to kick out of Dodge. Goku flips the phone, and he knows whose idea it is. It's his mom, and she sounds pretty ticked. So Goku ends up sprinting to head back home. Black Widow gives Goku a piece of her mind. She was worried sick after she was done with her mission. She couldn't find her son, she didn't know where he was, but the first thought that came to her mind was her son likes to pick fights. So maybe he saw the message about the robots and decided to literally run towards them. So she made Goku sit down, and she tried not to be too domineering because she knows how her son is. Fighting is just a part of him. But she wanted him to at least know that the reason she's upset is because he didn't tell her, and because if he had gotten hurt, she would not have known about it until it was too late. Goku's punishment is that he's not allowed to watch any martial arts movies, and he's not allowed to train for 2 weeks. This was agony to Goku. He couldn't even think about going a day without training, let alone 2 weeks. But he also knew that this was quite lenient and also fair. He should have let his mom know what he was going to do. Nick Fury is just sitting down in the helicarrier watching a video of Goku in the middle of the building releasing an EMP, and then the camera just goes black. And this gives Nick Fury an idea. Having Tony Stark meeting Goku would be very beneficial, not just for the Avengers initiative, but for the simple fact that Tony is the only person that Nick Fury can think of who can maybe create equipment specifically for Goku's powers. Black Widow has already gotten her orders, and she knows that this was going to happen eventually. So she gets Goku all dressed up the best way she can, except for his hair, because apparently no matter what she does, there is not an amount of hair gel in the world that can keep that thing down. As Iron Man and Nick Fury are talking with one another, Black Widow is walking into the building with her 12-year-old son. Iron Man is taken aback at seeing a kid brought into an adult conversation. Nick Fury gives a smug smirk and says, "I can't wait to tell you about him." What If Goku is in the MCU, Part 17. Tony Stark is just sitting there and trying to take in all the information that Nick Fury is giving to him about this kid and about how he's supposed to be making special equipment for this kid. Tony is starting to just come up with a lot of creative ideas, maybe a little bit of theories on what kind of equipment might actually benefit Goku. But he also really doesn't know this kid's power set, so he looks at Goku and just straight up asks him, "So hey, Porcupine, what are your abilities exactly?" "Well, Tony Stark, sir, I can kind of shoot laser beams out of my hands, and I can, I release an EP?" Nick Fury chimes in, "He means an EMP." "Oh, yeah, that." Goku kind of scoots next to his mom for a bit, goes to his hand and just says, "What's an EMP?" Black Widow tries to put it in the simplest terms to get her son to understand. And she goes, "It's a really powerful wave that makes technology shut off." Then Goku just goes into the standard things that he's capable of doing, such as super strength, super speed, and he can jump really high at very high distances. He doesn't know that he's capable of flight, considering he's never really actually practiced flying before. So Nick Fury looks at Tony and goes, "So, are you up for it?" Tony Stark's now one for backing down from challenges, and he can't wait. He has so many thoughts and ideas that he wants to put to use, and Goku just seems like the perfect guinea pig. As the conversations were over and Black Widow and Goku were heading back home, Black Widow just starts to talk to Goku in the car. Black Widow stops the car somewhere private so her and Goku can have a meaningful conversation. She looks at Goku, who just looks so excited. There's like a gleam in his eye over the excitement of what he's going to be able to do. But she wants Goku to at least know his options. Goku, you don't owe anything to S.H.I.E.L.D. If there's anything else you want to be, if there's any other interests that you like, then you are more than free to pursue them. I just don't want you to think that being a superhero is the only thing that you are able to do. Do you understand? What if Goku was in the MCU Part 18? It's been about 2 years, and Goku has been getting these really nice equipment from Tony, especially these special gauntlets that make him feel like he's being weighed down, like a gravity machine of some sort. It makes Goku's training harder, and he enjoys it. He loves these new inventions that Tony seems to give him. As Goku's been training, watching a lot of movies, he figures that maybe he has other special powers that he has waiting to be unlocked. Goku has been thinking really hard about flying. He really wants to know if maybe he's capable of flight. He's not 100% sure he can do it, but then again, he also wasn't 100% sure that he could shoot lasers out of his hands, and he can do that. So Goku one day decides to go on the top of their apartment complex and take a dive. Let's just say that Goku got a thorough punishment after pulling that stunt, but he did get a positive out of it. He can fly. He just needs to practice on how to fully control it. Black Widow ends up getting a call to finish a mission, and Goku knows how this goes. His mom goes on like several different types of missions, so he knows that he needs to stay well behaved in the apartment, finish up his online assignments that he really does hate, and it was just going to be routine. But as Goku was just finishing up an online assignment, he gets a call from his mother, and he's just left in shock because she never really finishes missions this soon. Black Widow goes into detail on the fact that they need to get to the helicarrier and that there's something wrong with his uncle. Goku packs his bare essentials and starts to head off, and then there's an agent outside the door escorting him to the helicarrier so that he can go and meet his mother. Natasha goes to Goku and she tries to explain the best way she can that the situation that they're in right now is kind of dire and that he needs to be on his best behavior, especially right now. Natasha is about to go over and pick up the Hulk, but Goku stops her and says that he wants to go with her because he does not want his mother to get hurt or injured, and he's been thoroughly trained on how to be like an agent. So he doesn't feel that there should be a huge problem with that. Natasha tries to insist, but they're running out of time, so she says that he can come, but under the condition that he needs to be behind her, and that he should not try to cause the situation to be worse. And Goku nods. What if Goku was in the MCU, Part 19? So Black Widow makes sure to go step by step on how the plan is supposed to go. How they're going to get Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, to a certain location in the village. And Black Widow said very sternly to Goku that he better not try to start a fight, and he should not try to anger Bruce Banner. And she says that if he ends up doing those two things, then he's not going to be allowed going on any future missions, and that he's not going to be allowed to train for a month. Goku was a little bummed out that he couldn't have a sparring match with the Hulk, but he also understands his mom's predicament. Can't literally have an entire village destroyed because he wants to have a fight. Goku sees Bruce Banner for the first time. He's like slightly behind his mother, like in the background of such, just to keep a good distance between her to make sure she didn't get hurt. And he must say that Bruce Banner was not what he was expecting. how Bruce Banner looked completely caught Goku off guard, because he didn't look anything like the Hulk. He didn't look like he was, well, threatening in the slightest. When Bruce Banner looks at Goku, he says, "Well, who is he? Another agent, I presume?" Bruce Banner speaks a lot more loudly and seems like he's about to get angry. But he would just wanted to see what Black Widow would do. And she has a gun pointed straight at Bruce Banner's face. And Goku is in a fighting stance, just ready for anything, especially the Hulk. Not necessarily understanding that the Hulk is a very powerful enemy. Bruce Banner reluctantly agrees to go with them to go and find the cube thing. Goku isn't really certain how the cube thing works. All he knows is it could harm the world. And that's all the information that Goku needs. Goku gets this gleam in his eyes looking at Captain America, Steve Rogers. And as he's talking to his mom, he just imagines being able to spar with the Captain America. His Uncle Phil told him so many amazing stories about Captain America that he can't help but fanboy. Or Agent Coulson, to be more accurate. So apparently, they just got some news that Loki is heading into Germany, and Goku can't wait. His fists have been ready to punch something. What if Goku was in the MCU, Part 20? Goku is really stoked. This is his first real battle as a SHIELD agent. He cannot wait to be battling a literal god. And Loki, dastardly bastard that he is, decided to have a whole bunch of people kneel to appear as a god, I guess. And Goku is just assessing the situation as just being really weird. Captain America is basically starting off this fight. Loki tries to basically shoot a beam at him, and it just ricochets back. Goku is really impressed by Steve Rogers. He's giving Loki a pretty decent fight. And as soon as, Steve Rogers is on the floor, Goku decides to take the freaking reign. Goku decides to put his new laser hand ability to use. He shoots a fire right directly at Loki, and Loki, in response, uses his staff to do the same thing, and it ends up being quite the beam struggle. Goku is putting his all into this beam, but the thing is, he's just not as powerful as the staff, and so it just keeps getting closer and closer, and eventually does in fact hit Goku straight on. But then here comes Iron Man, freaking beams ablazing, and then Loki just straight up surrenders. Before Black Widow does anything, she wants to assess her son to see if there was any damage done to him, because he basically took a beam from Loki's staff straight towards himself. The only thing that Black Widow could find was that his skin was slightly pink, and that the area where his clothes were singed. But other than that, no real actual damage. Black Widow goes back to the cockpit and goes back to flying. But she does keep in mind that maybe she'll probably have to do a bit of tests on her son to see if maybe he caught some sort of gamma radiation of sorts. But she'll leave that for another time. Their flying machine just seems to be engulfed in lightning and thunder, and Goku is typically not really scared of things like that, but right now the feeling is just ominous, to say the least. All Goku could see was that there was a blonde-haired dude with a hammer who just straight up took Loki. Goku sees Tony Stark going after Thor, and Goku thinks, because there is an adult present, that it should be fine that Goku goes with him to go and fight Thor. His mom shouldn't mind that much. Before Natasha can give any sort of complaint, he already freaking left. What if Goku was in the MCU, Part 21? Goku took some time to actually learn this opponent that they were facing, Thor. He actually watched his moves while he was fighting with both Tony and Steve Rogers. Goku was just watching the fight unfold and was just getting so many pointers on so many new techniques he could probably utilize. And then when he finally saw Tony getting thrown into a tree, he figured, hey, it's my turn. Goku figured that he had enough time to be on the offense instead of the defense, so he decided to maybe attack Thor before he had any chance to recharge his hammer. Thor was able to get out of the way of Goku's attack, but just barely. Thor was able to charge up his hammer. He raised it to the sky, and then lightning just started to bolt down. But due to Goku having a lot of training, specifically in reflexes, was able to get away from the majority of the bolts. But due to Goku having a lot of agility training, he was able to get out of the way of most of the lightning bolts that were heading his direction. The only injuries that Goku may have gotten was maybe a few scratches from some of the bolts actually nicking at his skin. Thor decided to charge up his hammer again, and he was about to strike Goku down while he's distracted with the other lightning bolts. But before he gets the chance, Captain America blocks it, causing a huge explosion in the forest, causing basically a giant circle formation and a lot of dead trees. As all three of the men are now looking at the giant pile of destruction that they just caused, Thor actually takes notice of the opponent that he had just been facing, and now realizes that he has been fighting a literal child. Thor ends up taking a step back at the fact that he almost tried to attack a literal child, but at the same time being thoroughly impressed that a human child was able to keep in pace with lightning bolts. To say that Black Widow was very upset about the danger that her son was in would have been an understatement. And she gave Goku a thorough lecture on how these protocols are supposed to go. Especially between a mother and a son, when the son decides to go off on a literal, almost suicide mission. But Black Widow cannot help but feel a little bit of pride in the fact that her son took on a god and only came back with a few cuts and bruises and scratches. That was about it. But she wasn't about to tell Goku that she had that feeling right now. He needed to be punished for this. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 22. Vegeta was getting thoroughly bored. It had been a long time since he actually got a decent challenge. Most of the times when he gets sent off world, he's given more and more access to his powers. But it's not like he had anyone to actually test those abilities on. There was this particular planet that Vegeta took a lot of interest in. Gamora and him decided to go off world for a little while and found this planet that just seemed to have these certain techniques that Vegeta's never seen before. It turns out like these people's abilities were being able to sense and detect this sort of life force, or chi, or ki. Vegeta really couldn't figure out how they pronounced it, but it did sound fascinating. She could not figure out how to do the life force energy finding technique, but she did learn some really useful martial arts ability. And her and Vegeta decided to keep this secret from Thanos and decided to just say that they destroyed half the planet so that their population could still thrive, and felt that that would be a perfect thank you for basically giving them a one-up over Thanos. As Vegeta and Gamora were heading back to Thanos from one of their recent missions, they got to talking about what their plans were for the future. Vegeta was just going into a tirade that once he took out Thanos, then he will be the ruler of the universe. Gamora went to teasing Vegeta on the fact that it would take a bit of an adjustment to go from such a real tall titan to such a tiny little fighter to take seriously. Vegeta and Gamora always did this, teasing each other, and the way you won was to make the other one upset, so they always seem to mock each other as much as they can. Before they could actually head over to meet Thanos on some sort of asteroid belt somewhere, they ended up getting a signal from a planet called Vormir. It seemed to be detecting that there was an Infinity Stone on this planet. Both of them, both Gamora and Vegeta, just had this sinking feeling go down their stomach that there was something really strange about this place. None of them could really pinpoint it, but they knew something was just wrong. Both Gamora and Vegeta look at each other deep into their eyes and both make a silent agreement to never tell Thanos about this planet. Both of them could not let him get another stone. What If Goku Was in the MCU, Part 23. Now, things are starting to cool down a bit. Everyone's back on the ship and now talking about what they're going to do with Loki. Loki's not going to be spilling the beans on what his big plan was, so now they have to try to figure out what Loki's next play was supposed to be. The only real thing that everyone seems to be agreeing on is that they should really find the cube because apparently there's an army that's supposed to be heading towards Earth. Black Widow figured that her best course of action for Goku was to keep him close. He's a reckless kid who will get in a lot of trouble and get real seriously hurt if she doesn't keep an eye on him. Black Widow takes Goku but keeps him in the back so Loki can't see him. And she does like a manipulation play to try to get Loki to tell her his plan. And it turns out that Loki is trying to use the Hulk as a huge distraction by having him destroy the helicarrier. When Goku actually meets up with all of the adults and figuring out that Bruce Banner is supposed to turn into the giant Hulk and destroy the helicarrier, Goku is left a bit on edge. Goku is just in the middle of all these adults just shouting at each other, making arguments about whether S.H.I.E.L.D. is holding a whole bunch of secrets, whether Tony is being an a-hole, and everyone is just shouting over each other, not really listening to anything. Black Widow tries to take Goku out of the room, believing that this situation is not meant for a child. Goku just looks around at all of these adults, and he just shouts to stop in the middle of their arguments, and says that all of this is pointless, and the scepter just seems to just radiate a bit more light, as if responding to Goku's anger for some reason. And Bruce Banner is holding on to the scepter at this point, after giving a story about how he wanted to end his existence. Suddenly there's a giant explosion. One of the engines in the helicarrier just up and exploded. And during the explosion, Goku ended up falling with his mother. Goku looks around and he notices two things. One, his mom's leg is stuck under rubble. And two, Banner is now becoming the Hulk. Goku uses his strength and picks up that rubble as quickly as he can and picks up his mother. Bruce Banner is now fully the Hulk, and he just seems to be adamant about going after Black Widow. Although Goku and Black Widow got a head start, Bruce Banner seems to be getting really close to their tail. As soon as Goku realizes that there's no other decisions he can make, he tries to punch the Hulk. What If Goku Was in the MCU, Part 24. Goku put as much strength as he could in his fist and punched the Hulk straight in the gut through a wall. And although that hit kept the Hulk down for a few seconds, all it did was make the Hulk even more mad. Goku always imagined being able to fight the Hulk one day, but maybe not under such dire circumstances. Because this wasn't much of a fight as it was a battle for survival. Goku is strong, but he's not strong enough to break through Hulk's thick skin. So he punches him, and Goku isn't really sure if any of it is actually affecting the Hulk at all. Goku would get hit sometimes, but due to his flexibility and agility, he was able to avoid most of Hulk's heavy hits. Goku figures that his arms aren't doing the work, so he needs to maybe switch it up a bit. So he switches to his legs and tries to do a spinning kick to Hulk's face. Now, Hulk's no martial artist, but anyone trying to do a spinning kick needs to keep two things in mind. One is to make sure that you're 100% sure that you can hit your opponent, and to know that you're going to be pretty vulnerable Hulk ended up grabbing Goku's foot and holding Goku upside down. Goku is just looking at the floor and he already senses that this is not going to go well for him. Goku is being slammed on the ground. He gets hit in the face with a piece of like a plane wing. Goku is just not having fun right now. Goku tries to get his leg free, but Hulk's grip is like a vice. It won't let it go. But then suddenly, Hulk gets hit in the back of the head by a very well-known hammer. When Hulk finally let go of Goku's leg, Goku was trying to catch his breath as he just lay there on the floor, completely exhausted. But if all things considered, the fact he wasn't dead should have been probably something to be grateful for. As soon as Goku finally caught onto his breath and was able to at least get his chest off the ground, he looked around and just was watching as Hulk and Thor were having their battle. It seems that Thor was getting the upper hand in this situation. Hulk was just fighting blindly, while Thor actually seemed to have at least somewhat of an idea of what he was going to do. Goku decides that he needs to go and see his mom to make sure that she's okay. He gets up and realizes that his stomach, his head, his arms, everything hurts. Goku felt grateful that he could move at all. It's not an understatement that the majority of the people that go up against the Hulk don't get the same result. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 25. As Goku is heading towards his mother, Black Widow, he notices that she's already in a fight with Clint right now, and they're really going at it. Goku can tell right away that there's something wrong with Clint. His uncle would never intentionally fight Natasha for no reason. At first, Goku thinks that he needs to help his mom, but it seems that she has this fight already set in match. She gets Clint's hand and then it gets smacked into the rails. And then she gives a real hard punch to the face. Natasha is sending Clint to the medical facilities in the helicarrier and told Goku that he should probably go and find Fury or any of the rest of the group. Goku does as his mom says and goes to where Nick Fury is most likely going to be. When Goku gets to where Nick Fury, Captain America, and Tony Stark are, he sees Nick Fury throw a pack of bloodied cards at Captain America, and Goku recognizes those cards really quickly. Goku remembers being a little kid, and his Uncle Coulson would show him his Captain America cards with such pride. Goku knows for a certainty that he would never bloody those cards, and he always kept them. Then the realization of why those cards are bloody is starting to come to Goku's mind, and the more he thinks about it, the more it starts to hurt. And as Goku is listening in on the conversation between Nick Fury, Cap, and Tony, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that Coulson is dead. Goku can just feel this burning, intense anger trying to just jump out of him, but he doesn't want to hurt anyone. But then Goku is going back into his memories with his uncle, all of his training, all the times that he actually spent with Coulson when his mom would go out on missions, and it just kept on coming to the front of his mind. And then all of those memories, all those happy memories, are now glazed in an era of pain. Goku is not realizing that even if he's trying to hold that anger in, it's starting to flicker. And he doesn't even realize that everything about him is starting to flare up for some reason. Goku isn't realizing that due to his angry state, that every bit of power inside him is now just being released. Everything shaking, everything shattering, and everyone's just left not knowing what to do. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 26. Now Goku is in a very angered state. He just lost someone he felt very close to, and his hair keeps flickering a yellow color. but it doesn't seem to just go full yellow. It's more of like it goes back to black and then yellow. Nick Fury is just looking around the room at all the damage that Goku is indirectly causing, and can pretty much figure out that it's from Goku's rage. Nick Fury looks at him, and it feels like a very similar situation with the Hulk. Now, Nick Fury, unlike with the Hulk, where it's a full frontal attack straight up to destroy Bruce Banner if the situation calls for it, he can't do the same thing with Goku. Nick Fury figures that he needs to calm Goku down before he causes any more destruction in the Helicarrier. It's barely functioning right now. Nick Fury is trying to walk up to Goku, but it seems to be going at a snail's pace because Goku is releasing a whole bunch of wind waves where he is standing, and it's getting a little hard to actually get to him. Everyone is just looking in awe and feels like if Goku gets any more angry and releases it, he could end up destroying the entire Helicarrier without even meaning to. While Black Widow was in the medical center with Clint, she felt a huge explosion and felt that they might have been attacked in the conference room. Black Widow goes in a rush to see what is happening, and then she just sees her son glowing. Black Widow doesn't know why, she doesn't know how her son is glowing, but at this particular moment, she does not care, because when she looks upon her son's face, all she can see is that he is in pain. So Black Widow is also going at a snail's pace trying to get to Goku. She's shouting his name, she's trying to get his attention, and eventually, when Goku turns his head and just sees his mother literally pushing through the wind, Goku starts to calm down. As soon as Goku sees his mother's face, his hair and his eyes go back to being black. And when he looks at her, he stares right into his mom's eyes, and he just looks like he's in anguish. Black Widow may not know why this happened, but all she needs to know is that her son's in pain, and now she's here to comfort him. Black Widow goes to her son and gives him a hug and puts his head on her shoulder and tries to comfort him as best as she can. Now that Nick Fury sees that the situation is handled, he goes off to his crew to save what's left of the Helicarrier. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 27. Vegeta was getting thoroughly annoyed at all of the waiting. Apparently Dad has hired this freakish magician dude. Vegeta didn't really have very many inclinations to actually pay attention to what the mission technically was. But one of the major things is, Vegeta is supposed to help Loki a bit, but if Loki fails by his own hands, Thanos said that Vegeta is not meant to, get him out of that situation. Vegeta has had years to understand the underlining message of what Thanos is actually saying. And what he actually is saying is that Vegeta is able to just sit back and just watch Loki fail. Vegeta didn't really have any inclinations to help Loki with his little crusade on Earth. And not only that, but there wasn't really anything interesting to Vegeta. If Vegeta were to actually get into the fight, he knew he could end that battle just like that. And what fun would that be? Vegeta felt like Thanos had given him a supervisor position, because there was literally no fighter on Earth at this point in time that could even match Vegeta's power. And he just felt like that was such a waste of time. But then suddenly, when he was on his ship heading towards Earth, there was this beeping sensation. Suddenly, this little machine that usually him and Gamora use to find Infinity Stones, for some reason there's another power surge that just freaking shows up on the screen, and that just leaves Vegeta in complete disarray. It picks up an Infinity Stone, but it's also picking up another power entirely. It's not showing up as being as strong as an Infinity Stone, but it seems to be a really strong entity, maybe? Vegeta is just left with so many questions, what could this surge in power come from? because it showed up on the screen, but only for a little bit. Vegeta is just left with this confused look on his face. Did he imagine that surge of power popping on the screen? What did it come from? Was it a person? Was it an item? Vegeta is just left going, what was that surge of power coming from? Like, there's already an Infinity Stone on Earth, but it was already on the screen. So whatever was showing up on the screen just popped out of nowhere and then just disappeared. Vegeta gets this surge that maybe that power surge came from a person. And this thought comes to his mind that maybe Earth is a lot more fascinating than he thought. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 28. Black Widow is just looking at her son in worry. It's been a couple minutes now and Goku has calmed down, but the fact of the matter is he could end up blowing up at any moment in time. Black Widow really wants to help her son grieve for the loss that he just felt, but at the moment, they're kind of currently busy with having to stop Loki from invading planet Earth. Goku decides that he needs to put all of his emotional baggage to the back burner right now, because he needs to get his head in this galactic war game that they've got going on. And Goku knows that if he ends up losing his calm, he could end up releasing that new power that he just felt and accidentally hurting and or killing somebody. As all of the Avengers are now assembled and getting ready for war, Goku, not really having very much experience being in a battlefield, decides that his best course of action is just to take as many Tarkatans out as possible. Black Widow is just watching her son in awe. Goku's trying to do a flying maneuver above and trying to do airstrikes at the Tarkatans, trying to get at their blind spots. But Goku, during this point in time, doesn't actually have very much flight experience. At the most, he's basically just gliding, not full-on flying. He doesn't know how to get as much energy he needs to actually propel himself to go faster yet. He just knows how to get himself off of the ground so far. So it would technically be called levitating. Just very high levitation. Loki is really starting to lose ground on this battle, and he ends up getting a one-way ticket to Stark Industries. Him and Tony seem to be just bantering condescendingly at each other. When Goku gets a really good look at Loki, like a really good look, he sees a man with no sense of remorse of what he's done. No sense of consequences. And Goku just has this real raw urge to be that consequence. That anger from before that Goku tried to conceal is now flaring up again. When Loki tries to go on his spiel about being a god, that just seems to finally flip the switch in Goku's head. That anger that Goku kept bottled up is now completely at the forefront, and now he wants to put some hurt on Loki, specifically with a move that Hulk did to him earlier to make it very therapeutic. Goku makes Loki his own personal ragdoll for at least a couple minutes. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 29. Vegeta just had this feeling in the bottom of his gut that he needed to go and find this power signature. He felt like maybe, finally, he was going to get an actual challenge. Goku put all of his rage and anger into that pummeling. Loki is now on the ground and he is basically just groaning in pain. Goku figures that his battle with Loki is just now done. Loki doesn't look like he has any fight left in him. And before he can pick up Loki and have him handcuffed and handed to Tony Stark, Goku ends up getting beamed in the chest. Goku gets hit with a heated blast, and it feels like his chest got not only sucker punched by a bus, but also feels like it got burned with a flamethrower. Goku looks up, and he sees his opponent. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 30. Vegeta really looked at this kid, and he could just tell, like instinctually, that what he was looking at was another fellow Saiyan. And he tried to contemplate how there was a Saiyan on Earth. As Vegeta put his guard up, the thing that excited him most was he could actually feel Goku's attack. This is the first time in a long time that he's actually met an opponent who can actually hurt him. Goku finds an opening in Vegeta's guard and does an uppercut punch right into Vegeta's gut. And as Vegeta is distracted by the pain in his gut, Goku does another punch right at Vegeta's face. Vegeta gets up in record time and does a spinning roundhouse kick right to Goku's side. Vegeta doesn't care about Loki. All that matters is this fight. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 31. Goku was getting this adrenaline rush from this battle. He hasn't felt like this since his earlier fight with the Hulk, which technically didn't really last that long. He got completely bodied, but with Vegeta it feels a lot more even in a way. Vegeta's mind was rather conflicted. On one hand, he's finally getting a fight that actually feels like a fight instead of a slaughter. But on the other hand, he knows that Goku isn't of the noble class. And the fact that Vegeta is of equal skill as him brings up another side of him that he hasn't felt in a while. That pride that he thought was once gone. Vegeta thanked him for the battle, but it was time to end this. And as he flew into the air and beamed straight to the earth, Goku blocked it with his own beam. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 32. The beam struggle between Goku and Vegeta was intense. Everything was shaking. Not just the city itself, but perhaps even the whole world was starting to shake. Now Goku's inexperience is starting to show here, because although Goku has figured out how to generate power out of his body, he doesn't know how to do it consistently, and now his body is taking a lot of strain. Goku's trying to remember, he's trying to grasp that power he once had when he was angry and upset over Agent Coulson's death. Then Goku thinks about his own mom, that if he doesn't stop this beam from hitting the earth, then she's also going to die. And using that, Goku was able to use that power, but just for a moment. And he took the brunt of the blast. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 33. Goku decided that he needed to contain the blast, to make sure that it wouldn't end up destroying the city. So he ended up engulfing it into almost a special barrier to make sure he was the one who took the brunt of the force. But the thing about this plan is, now he's left rather helpless. The battle between these two was quite the spectacle, especially both of these guys showing off the huge amount of power that they both have. Vegeta was actually thoroughly impressed that Goku lasted this long, even with his inexperience. But Vegeta could have sworn he saw this yellow glowing light at the end of his beam, and he just could not explain it. Before Vegeta can actually strike Goku with his beam, he gets some sort of signal. Gamora called, and they need him back quick. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 34. Gamora's voice sounded anxious, and Vegeta knew that that could only mean one thing. That Thanos is calling upon both of them for a special mission of some sort, and that the mission that they are currently on is going sour. Vegeta looks at Goku, completely helpless. He could easily kill him right now. But he thinks he's not going to. He has been the only source of a genuine competition for a long time, and it would be such a waste. Goku's on the floor and he knows that he's helpless, that he can't move an inch, and he hears footsteps and thinks that Vegeta's gonna finish him. But those footsteps, instead of coming closer, are now moving further away. When Goku is finally able to just open his eyes, he sees his mother standing right there beside him, waiting for an ambulance. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 34. Black Widow has been growing more and more concerned for her son lately. It's been a few days since that incident that happened in New York City, and her son is still recovering from the damage he took from that battle. she just remembers seeing Goku look just utterly defenseless and in a lot of pain. And that's the image that always keeps popping out at her every time she thinks, is what she's forcing Goku to do actually good for him? The only good news that Black Widow was able to get was that Goku was healing a lot faster than the average person. And some of the doctors were saying that he's almost fit to just leave the hospital entirely. Black Widow knows that if she brings this up to Nick Fury, that he is going to just negate her, because Goku is just showing way too much promise with his powers. What if Goku was in the MCU? Part 35. As soon as Goku was healed, he started to begin his training again. That defeat that he had from Vegeta just kept on gnawing at his mind. The image that is just plastered into Goku's mind was the beam struggle, and how he had so much power in the palm of his hands, if only he knew how to fully utilize it. Black Widow felt somewhat guilty about leaving Goku in the Hellcarrier, but she did not want to bring her son into another fight after what happened to him in the first fight. Her son barely got to full health, and it just seems like he's mentally struggling with something. Black Widow really debated with herself on whether this is a good idea, but she knows her son loves to fight, and she figures she'll keep a mental note and maybe take Goku on the next mission.